Hey, and welcome back to another wonderful episode here at MSA. So glad you could be here and join us. Got a lot to talk about when it comes down to good old Donald Trump. A lot of people might go, oh my gosh, why are you talking about Trump? Everybody's talking about Trump. Well, there's a lot to be talking about Trump. What we want to talk about has to do with New Hampshire. A lot of people have already talked about Iowa. We get it. And we're going to roll a little bit of Iowa in a minute. But before we get into that, before we get into anything, let's do the typical standard. Please like, share, and subscribe. We really need your help to help this channel grow. We're trying to reach a broader audience, be able to put the content out there that a lot of people want to see that I promise you can't see. And part of what you're going to see tonight is a reason that we ask you to please share. So, first off, let's go into a little bit of Trump. So, I want to talk about New Hampshire because Iowa was a big deal, and we'll get into that a little bit later in this episode. But right in the beginning, I want to talk about New Hampshire because we did a segment a little while back that stated Ramaswamy was probably going to be looking the best for vice president for Donald Trump. And then not too long ago, you might have heard the story that came out where Trump got mad about Ramaswamy and said he's a phony and a fake and a this and a that. And yet, when he was in New Hampshire, he invited Vivek to come up and talk on stage with him while he was going through his stuff with the crowd. Now, I watched the whole thing, and Vivek came out like a powerhouse. And when you have guys that are talking without teleprompters and they come out with such a powerful message, it's with conviction because they mean it. It's not because they sat back and rehearsed it. He called Donald Trump the night before, and they had a discussion on the telephone. And the next day, they're in New Hampshire, and he gets pulled up on stage with former President Trump to address the crowd. And we're going to play a little segment of that, not a whole bunch of it, because it's about 9 minutes long, and we don't want to put you through all that. And we're going to look into putting a link down below that you could probably click on and see the whole thing. The whole speech is about an hour long, and it's really interesting what Trump has to say about a lot of issues. But just to get into the beginning of all this, we're going to come back and talk about it in just a second. Let's see some of what Vivek had to say while he's standing on stage with President Trump. So that way you know it's pretty legit. All right? So we're going to go ahead and roll that clip, and we'll get right back in just a second. All right?
You want to cut Social Security, you want to cut Medicare, you want to cut veterans benefits so we can fork over more money to Ukraine so some kleptocrat can buy a bigger house? Vote for Nikki Haley, not this man right here. But if you want to actually put an agenda that puts Americans first, to say that the moral obligation of your leaders is to the citizens of this country, not another one, there is not a better choice left in this race than this man right here. And that is why I am asking you to do the right thing as New Hampshire and to vote for Donald J. Trump as your next president, because we're not working with a lot of time here. If our kids are in high school before we get this right, we don't have a country left. That's what it means. We've been celebrating our diversity and our differences for so long that we forgot all of the ways that we are the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals that set this country into motion. We believe those ideals still exist. This man is going to be your next president to revive them. E pluribus unum, from many, one. And you know how we're doing it? We're doing it by speaking the truth at every step of the way. There are two genders in this country. Period. That is the truth. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government in the United States, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution is the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. We fight for the truth. We stand up for the truth. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what reunited us after the Civil War. That is what won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is what still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. That is what we are going to revive to, yes, make America great again. Vote for this man right here in the New Hampshire primary. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. Thank you, New Hampshire. It's good to see you guys. We're coming back and winning this in a landslide. We will not stop until we get this job done. Thank you all. God bless you and your families. Thank you.
All right, what'd you think of that? Told you he had a lot to say. And, you know, I have a feeling he's speaking the truth. Because it's too often that we see blowhards get up and talk and talk and talk, and they start monitoring the teleprompters. You know, they talk, and then they get over here, and they start bringing up stuff that pacifies you and thinking, you know, hey, this all sounds kind of good. Vivek's sitting there talking right in front of Donald Trump. So if there's anything he's going to say that's wrong, I'm sure Trump's going to stop him from saying it. But isn't it amazing how what Ramaswamy had to say falls in line with the needs of what we actually need in the country? Where we were headed at one point in time, and now, I don't want to pick on the guy, but come on. Now we're falling on our face. And third world countries, as well as other huge countries, think we're a laughingstock and we're a joke. I don't understand some of the assignment of power that has happened during the Biden administration. You know, I don't know if you know this, but if we have another pandemic and our country gets shut down, the World Health Organization gets to come in and rule over our country and decide how it's going to go during another pandemic. And that's real. I mean, look it up. That's real stuff. So you're looking at Donald Trump standing there with Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's agreeing with them. And why is he agreeing with them? Because Vivek is saying half the things that Trump already has said and done and started doing. And yet, look at some of the words that came out of his mouth during that speech at that campaign rally in New Hampshire. Look at how that came to be. What did he say? Simple stuff like, there's only 3 branches of our government, not 4. We need to get rid of the deep state that's pulling the strings in the background and making things happen the way that we don't want them to happen. We really need to start looking into the promises that are being kept by our government and not the promises that are being made. We already know that Donald Trump will keep his promise because he did it the first time. And then we got hit with a pandemic. And I'm not going to use a conspiracy theory that the pandemic was planted and all that kind of stuff. But it's amazing how if you watch this movie called Contagion, or Contagion, however you want to say it, that came out years before, the whole thing plays out like the movie. Watch it sometime. It's an all-star cast that's in it. It'll blow your mind. All the way down to when they got to put the masks on. It'll blow your mind how identical that movie is to what exactly happened to our country and the world. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But back on to what we're talking about. Now, Trump's in New Hampshire, got Vivek up there. People are getting pumped up, and they're loving what they hear because he is the front runner. He's the front runner for a reason. He's ahead of everybody for a reason. Because people understand that he'll keep his word. Now, what's amazing is we've all heard about the Iowa caucus. And did you know MSNBC wouldn't play anything that Trump said at the Iowa caucus? Not one little bit. They won't do it. As a matter of fact, they did come out with the story, and we're going to play a little clip from it, and we're going to show you how, when the fake news, mainstream media, whatever you want to call them, what they do to try to sway your interpretation of a candidate. Okay? So we're going to roll this clip real quick. Just play a couple minutes of it and then come back and comment on this. And I promise you, you're going to be like, what? So anyway, we'll be right back. See you in a second.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The very first votes of the 2024 election have now been cast. There were no big surprises in Iowa last night as Donald Trump did cruise to victory, 51% of the total vote. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis came in a distant second, earning the support of 21% of Republican caucus goers, followed closely by Nikki Haley with 19%. In fact, the ex-president won 98 out of 99 counties in Iowa, all without spending anywhere near as much time in the state as his rivals, or even as much time as he spent in New York courtrooms. Now, of course, the ex-president and his allies are selling this as an enormous victory. They want the story coming out of Iowa to be the Donald Trump has once again imposed his will over the Republican Party. He's now cruising to the nomination. He will soon reclaim his throne in Washington. He's inevitable. And it all may feel like a frightening inevitability. And there is, I will say, a lot to be scared about. I don't think I hold back on that score. But I also think last night's results demonstrated that Donald Trump has some huge fundamental weaknesses that are just there staring us in the face. Now, these were the coldest caucuses in Iowa history, which is saying something. People had to brave wind chills as low as negative 30 degrees. They had to trudge through piles of snow and icy roads to get to their precincts. And it is fair to assume that only the most passionate, amped up voters would venture out in that kind of weather. And in the end, of that small group of people willing to do this, go out on a Monday night, barely a majority supported Donald Trump, the man who is supposed to be their unanimous, beloved leader. Just about half of all the Iowa caucus goers actually came out through the wind and the snow and the ice to support someone else. And that lack of enthusiasm is also reflected in the turnout numbers. There were about 115,000 people that turned out last night compared to 186,000 back in 2016. Now, some of that dip was likely due to the weather, but remember, the caucuses always take place in the dead of winter. Compare Trump's winning vote total to that of Senator Ted Cruz back in 2016. Trump won with just over 56,000 votes. That's only about 4,500 more than Cruz 8 years ago. So this is the first snapshot we have of the 2024 election, and doesn't fit with the narrative that we hear all the time that Republicans are just crazy for their cult leader Donald Trump across the board, right? I mean, think about this. There are more than 750,000 registered Republicans in the state of Iowa. 115,000 of them showed up to caucus last night. Just 56,250 voted for the ex-president. That's like less than 2% of the population of Iowa. There were more people in the stands for the last Hawkeyes home game than the number that voted for Trump. Then there's the entrance polling out of Iowa last night. A third of the people that showed up in that cold and wind, a third of caucus goers said that they would not consider Donald Trump to be fit for president if he is convicted of a crime. I gotta say, that was probably the most interesting result from our entrance polling last night. That number is higher than I would have guessed by quite a bit. And that's a big chunk of voters.
Okay, there's the other clip. Now, you got to see good old Chris Hayes get up and start spewing his stuff about the whole thing that happened at the Iowa caucus. And, you know, I just get so tired of hearing spin after spin after spin. Let's just break it down real quick. We're not going to analyze the whole thing. We're just going to break down a couple things. Let's just look at this thing as a whole, okay? So, Mr. Hayes compared the Iowa caucus of last night, or whenever you're watching this, for 2024. He compares it to 2016. That's great, because in 2016, it was 36 degrees outside. Last night, it was minus 5 degrees. So let's just look at that as part of a reason why people didn't show up. Then he starts comparing numbers with Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, and how Donald Trump got, 56,000 votes, and Ted Cruz got 51,000 votes, and he nonchalantly puts it out. That's only 4,500 more than, what Cruz got in 2016. Yes, and in 2016, there was 186,000 people there. In 2024, there was 115,000. That is 51% of the votes. That's huge. Half of the people that showed up there voted for Trump. Not half of the people that showed up in 2016 voted for Cruz. And when you look at the breakdown of that map where they show it all red, except one little dot where Trump won 98 out of the 99 counties of Iowa, that's amazingly huge. If you look at the same map from 2016, it's speckled dots all over the place from the different candidates that showed up. Nothing like this. This is just one whole spot of red with a little dot of a different color in there. It's amazing. Now, let's just break down one little last part in there that is irritating as all get out. When they say they polled 31% of the people that walked through the door said that they probably wouldn't vote for Trump if he was convicted of his crimes, quote unquote crimes, this made up nonsense that keeps going around as crimes. But they said 31% said that they probably wouldn't vote for him. 31% of what? 31%, or that he wouldn't be a likely candidate. Sorry, 31% of the 49% that didn't vote for him said that that would be a good idea. See, they don't tell you the whole thing. They spin it until it all sounds good. They show that, that the amount of people, that the registered voters amount that's in Iowa of the population, the 700 and something thousand people that live in Iowa, and then you look at the 56,000 people that actually voted for Trump at the caucus, and then he said, well, that's less than 2% of the population. Well, duh, the whole population wasn't there to vote. The whole population didn't vote. What is this guy even talking about? See, that's where we go back to the original clip, and when Ramaswamy's up there talking, one of his big points that if you heard it said, we need to stop looking at the differences and start looking at how we're all the same in this country. And how are we all the same? We want to have a good life. We want to enjoy our freedoms. And we want to be able to do things without this over-pressing, bearing part of the government that we get to feel more and more every day. Look at what's going on in these foreign lands where we've got these little wars breaking out. Look how you have the Houthis in the Red Sea blocking commerce. 90% of the commerce has been blocked going through there. That means the ships have to go around. That raises prices on everything. And guess what? Why are we having to send troops over there? Because they fired on one of our ships recently, right? They say, well, why do we always have to go do this? Because they use U.S. currency. If they use U.S. currency as part of trade, you have to protect them because they're using our money as their forms of trade for everything that goes on. It's amazing to me how we're always showing up late in the game lately. I mean, we gave a lot of money to Ukraine to help Ukraine. Ukraine will never amount to the amount of arsenal that Russia has. I mean, it's insane to think about all the things that are going on. And it's another reason why to look at the whole fact of the matter that comes down to Donald Trump. And if Trump makes sense for you, then make sure that you vote. You know, the thing that Ramaswamy said in there, we need a paper ballot. We need that to be a national holiday for the day that the vote for the presidency and everything comes online. And we need to go somewhere with a paper ballot. We need to show our ID and have it match our voters' registration and cast our vote. Because remember, there's still 16 states out there that you don't have to show ID to vote. So who's voting? You know, we don't want to have another thing go on like Maine that just came out recently, if you saw it, that Maine, when they had the overseers that watch when you vote. They watch the people tallying the votes. They sent the overseers home, and then the vote tally ballot people came back in and started shoving more votes into the machines. And one of the people that were there that was a whistleblower saw them pull vote ballots out and stuff them through the same machines 4 times. What does that tell you? Something a little fishy, right? And you go, oh, well, but courts looked at all of that stuff and they said that was, that Trump was wrong and it was all right. And you know what? They didn't do that. They didn't go into the meat and potatoes. They looked at the people that were in charge of everything and said, did anything funky go on with your place? Where everybody was counting the votes? And they said, no, everything went great here. Okay, that's good enough for us. Trump, you're wrong. It was a legit election. Okay, if it was, great. Now Trump's running for election again. So let's make sure it's a legit election this time. That way, the real candidate can win. And again, I've said it before. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about whoever's running for president and the people want in. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what we need to make sure happens this time, because it's really important. And this isn't the most important election of ever, because actually the most important election would have been when we had the first president, because that's how it all started. And maybe we should look back on how all that worked back then. That way we get it right this time. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. And again, please like, share, and subscribe. We need you to share, and share. Again, MSNBC never covered anything that Trump said at the Iowa caucus, and he was a 51% won the caucus, and they didn't cover none of it. So imagine what else is not being heard out there. Because see, the people that are watching this show don't necessarily watch what the other mainstream media and other places are doing and saying. So the words, you think, oh, well, everybody knows this stuff. No, they really don't. I talk to so many people out there. I talk to people everywhere I go, all the time. It's not always about politics. But I talk to a lot of people, and it's amazing the things that you hear come out of people's mouths. So again, please share, and hit the like button. That way we know this thing's running right. We sort of slowed down on some of the views, and we're not understanding that. So we really need your help to build the channel up. So please help us out. And now that we're at this point, we hope that wherever you're at, whatever time it is, day, night, morning, afternoon, you're having a great day and everything's going right. And we do love every one of you, and we hope to see you back again real soon. We got a lot more coming out, so just keep hitting that button and share. All right, we'll see you soon. Have a great one. Take care. Bye.